Fox 61 News First at 4 starts now.
So far, it's been moving quickly. Everyone is in good spirits, and we're all in this together. We brought coffee.
People need to get their voices heard on all different issues, and this is our duty as U.S.
I think we need changes, and we've had Democrat representation.
No, I'm not thinking about concession speech or acceptance speech yet.
President Donald Trump closing this campaign in the same state he ended his 2016 bid, Michigan.
A lot's at stake. A lot's going to happen.
From Hawaii to
First at 4, it's election night. Long lines out the door at polling locations all across Connecticut as the nation sees a record number of voters. We're keeping track of the key races here in our state.
President Trump and Joe Biden making their final pitch to voters. Campaign season coming to a head this evening. We're going to tell you where the candidates spent their time today and where they plan on being to watch those results roll in.
And as we speak to Secretary of the State Denise Merrill on a day where we're seeing record turnout, what the chief election officials saying about the polls and how Connecticut is handling the day so far.
Fox 61 News First at 4 starts now.
Thanks for joining us here on the News at 4 on this election day. I'm Ben Goldman.
And I'm Jen Bernstein. It is election night, and here in Connecticut, you have about 4 hours left to cast your vote if you haven't done so already. Polls are open until 8 p.m. On the ballot here in Connecticut, federal and local races, president, Connecticut's 5 congressional seats, and the balance of the state legislature in your hands today. And we will closely be monitoring that presidential election all through the night as both President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden make their final plea to voters this evening. President Trump met with applause after arriving at his national re-election headquarters earlier today in Arlington, Virginia. He greeted campaign staff at the Republican National Committee Annex office right here. The president stayed there for about an hour before returning to the White House. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is taking advantage of the final hours of the campaign, making a key stop in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. He visited his childhood home in Scranton before making stops in Philadelphia. He does plan on watching the results roll in from Wilmington, Delaware.
This morning, polls opened up at 6 a.m. with long lines that wrapped around buildings statewide, voters social distancing and masking up. Now, as of this morning, a record-breaking 102 million Americans had already voted. That total represents 73% of the total turnout of the 2016 presidential election. Early voting, whether in person or by mail-in or absentee ballot, has swelled during the pandemic as voters sought the safety and convenience it offers. Connecticut state leaders are also expecting high voter turnout this election, and it's looking like we're on track to meet that prediction given the crowds we've been seeing at polling places all throughout the day so far. Lines wrapped around Harborside Middle School in Milford around 7 a.m., pretty early start. In New Fairfield with long lines of voters stretching down sidewalks even as the sun started rising.
So far, it's been moving quickly. Everyone is in good spirits, and we're all in this together. We brought coffee.
People need to get their voices heard on all different issues, and this is our duty as U.S. citizens.
Now, not every polling place saw these long lines, though. As of this morning, steady stream of voters walking in and out of Meade School in Ansonia, but no line out the door there. Now, a quick reminder, if you haven't voted yet, if you're voting in person today, it's recommended that you bring your own pen or your own pencil for sanitary reasons given the pandemic. But many polling places are providing those pens and pencils that you can take with you. Face masks are required, but you'll not be refused your right to vote if you don't have one on. They'll work with that. State leaders reminding that you cannot wear any type of campaign apparel supporting candidates inside of your polling place.
Now, there are a number of races that we're watching here in Connecticut. All 5 of our congressional seats are up for grabs today. In the 1st Congressional District, we have incumbent John Larson going up against Mary Fay and Tom McCormick. In Connecticut's 2nd Congressional District, incumbent Joe Courtney is being challenged by Justin Anderson. In the 3rd Congressional District, incumbent Rosa DeLauro facing Margaret Stryker and Justin Paglino. And in the 4th Congressional District, we have incumbent Jim Himes up against Jonathan Riddle and Brian Merlin. And finally, in the 5th Congressional District, we have incumbent Johanna Hayes being challenged by David X. Sullivan and Bruce Walczak.
In the category governors, they're just like us. Governor Ned Lamont casting his own ballot in Greenwich today. The governor posting these photos on Twitter, thanking poll workers and asking voters to say a special thanks to all of them as well. We have team coverage of the 2020 elections here in Connecticut. A polling place in New London ran into a bit of a hiccup this morning with absentee ballots. Workers at the registrar's office say that they're fixing the issue by sending out a message.
Fox 61's Carmen Chow joining us live from New London right now with more on what happened. Carmen.
Well, Ben and Jen, the wrong packet of ballots ended up being distributed to the wrong district here. And earlier this morning, I did speak to someone at the registrar's office who told me luckily this did not cause any delays or further issues. Stacks of ballots in packs of 100 got picked in the morning, and those belonging to the 41st Assembly race ended up going into the 39th. It was not until the ballots were put into the tabulator when the office realized something was wrong.
When the ballots wouldn't go in the machine was spitting them back out because of the wrong ballot. They thought there was a tabulator problem, so they shut down the tabulator.
And in the midst of figuring out what was going on, voters temporarily put their ballots into what is called the auxiliary bin. It was later determined to be a ballot issue when a second tabulator also spit the ballots back out. That is when the workers had to call those voters back to vote again for the correct district.
We agreed that we were going to try to contact the people. We have our voter checklist program, which is being what checks off the names of the people. And we started to see how many people voted during that time, their names during that time period.
Giesing says it was up to 70 people that had to re-vote, as some did not even want to vote for that race. So they knew it was an issue that had to be quickly fixed. Secretary of the State Denise Merrill was notified about the incident.
We're going to allow them to vote for all the offices except for the one that's in question, and that would be 2 different state rep districts. And those people, they're working right now on calling them all, finding out who they are, and allowing them to vote just for that office, but their vote will count.
And the registrar's office says if you also made the mistake, you are urged to come back and vote again, and these polls don't close until 8 o'clock tonight. I'm live in New London. Carmen Chow, Fox 61 News.
Carmen, thank you very much. And we are expecting a possible another rush of people to the polls as the workday comes to a close ahead at 4:30. We're going to be talking one-on-one with Connecticut's chief election official, Secretary of the State Denise Merrill, on what her office is seeing and hearing. All right, we want to continue our election coverage with Fox 61's Tony Terzi. He's joining us live from Middletown right now.
Yeah, Tony, what can you tell us? What are you seeing?
We are live here at the Wesley Middle School, the Wesley Elementary School here, just off of Route 17 in sort of the southeast part of Middletown. It's where Rosa DeLauro has been greeting voters. She, of course, is the 3rd District incumbent. She ran for the first time in 1990, and she has held the 3rd District congressional seat ever since. And with the exception of perhaps Tom Scott in the early 90s, Republican challenger back then, she hasn't received much of a challenge. But this year, her challenger, Margaret Stryker, tells us a short time ago that she's polling very well. And perhaps one of the reasons is Margaret has received the endorsement of several police unions in the greater New Haven area, including over in Derby and Ansonia. But Rosa DeLauro told us just a few minutes ago here at the Wesley Elementary School that she's not concerned about the police union endorsement. She said she knows she has the backing of the rank and file. She says police across the country need to be accountable, people, and that's why she's part of crafting legislation that she says most people agree with. That's a sticking point in many spots across the country, and that's perhaps why Margaret Stryker has their endorsement. Coming up on the Fox 61 News at 5, we'll hear what both Stryker and DeLauro have to say after DeLauro's campaign called Stryker, who is in real estate, a slumlord. We're live here in Middletown. Tony Terzi, Fox 61 News.
Definitely seeing an intense race over in the 3rd District. All right, a hotly contested battle for votes happening right now in Connecticut's 5th Congressional District.
And this is a district specifically that's been represented by both Republicans and Democrats historically. Fox 61's Matt Caron closely watching the candidates and joins us live with the details on that matchup. Matt.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Things are picking up here. We're live in Cheshire at Cheshire High School. Right now, Democrat incumbent Jahana Hayes and her Republican challenger David Sullivan are still traveling at this hour to various polling locations across the 5th District to try and hold some signs, thank their supporters, and pick up some last-minute votes. If you take a look behind me here, there's no line that's formed yet here at Cheshire High School. Things will pick up as people get out of work, but there are some supporters of various political candidates here holding signs. Now, Fox 61 was there this morning as Representative Hayes cast her ballot in her hometown of Woket. David Sullivan lives in New Fairfield. He's going to vote there. Voter turnout here in the 5th District is expected to be very high. In fact, so much so that when David Sullivan went to vote at 6 o'clock this morning, the lines were so long that he decided to come back later. He should be voting right about now in New Fairfield. This is an interesting race. The two candidates are both well funded. Jahana Hayes has raised about $1.8 million. Sullivan has about $370,000 in his war chest. Hayes has tried to paint Sullivan as someone who doesn't represent the values of voters here in the 5th District, while Sullivan has tried to tie Hayes to the extreme left of the Democratic Party, citing her lockstep voting record with Nancy Pelosi and the quote-unquote squad of freshman representatives.
I think we need changes, and we've had Democrat representation in Congress throughout all 5 congressional districts in Connecticut, and our 2 United States senators, and the State House in Hartford 48 out of the last 50 years. We just need to start doing things differently.
At the end of the day, I ran for Congress 2 years ago because I have a deep love for humanity, and I believe that all people can thrive, be conscientious and productive citizens if they're just given a shot.
Hayes is a former National Teacher of the Year. She sits on 3 congressional committees, including education. Sullivan spent 30 years as a federal prosecutor and also teaches at Western Connecticut State University. Now, coming up on the news at 5, I'll be diving into the demographics of the district here in the 5th District and explain what makes it so unique. But for now, we are live in Cheshire. Matt Caron, Fox 61 News.
All right, Matt, keep us updated. And the race for the White House continues right now, hours before election counts. Neither President Trump nor Joe Biden wasted any time making last-minute pleas to voters. Today, President Trump was asked whether he would make a concession or acceptance speech tonight after visiting the RNC Annex in Arlington, Virginia. Here's what he had to say.
No, I'm not thinking about concession speech or acceptance speech yet. Hopefully, we'll be only doing one of those two. And you know, winning is easy. Losing is never easy. Not for me, it's not.
And earlier today, the president's wife, First Lady Melania Trump, showed up to Palm Beach County to cast her vote. Both the First Lady and the president registered to vote in Florida. They used that address at their home at Mar-a-Lago. The president voted in Palm Beach County back in October. The First Lady said she wanted to show up and do it in person on Election Day.
Now, the candidates and their surrogates have fanned out across the country to reach key swing state voters.
As early voting numbers continue to shatter records this year, President Trump and Joe Biden making a push toward those who will vote in person and may decide the fate of this race. Nadia Romero in Washington now to explain the Biden barnstorm.
President Donald Trump closing this campaign in the same state he ended his 2016 bid, Michigan.
We made history together 4 years ago, and tomorrow we're going to make history once again.
The presidential candidates making an election eve blitz for battleground states.
North Carolina, thank you very much.
Ohio,
One more day.
The campaign trail converges in popular Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania, we love Pennsylvania.
where both President Trump and Joe Biden make stops. The Commonwealth and its 20 electoral votes is critical to the candidates.
I chose Western Pennsylvania for my first stop as a candidate, and now for my last stop before Election Day, because you represent the backbone of this country.
President Trump sprinting towards the finish line.
Hello, Kenosha. It's nice to be back. We spent a little time with you, a little law and order. We brought law and order to Kenosha.
In the final 4 days of the campaign, he scheduled nearly 20 rallies.
We have 5 of these today, 5.
His rally routine meant to energize his base and drum up Election Day support. The superstitious commander-in-chief starts every event with the same song and ends with the same message.
We will make America great again.
The goal 4 years later to recreate the 2016 results and win re-election.
We want the same result as we had 4 years ago from Michigan, right?
In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
Now, campaigns for both candidates say that they see a path to victory, but with so many mail-in ballots this year, it could be days before a winner is actually decided.
This is so true. All right, today, Jill Biden appealed to last-minute voters in Florida. She spent Election Day morning hoping to convince voters in this key battleground state to vote for Joe, saying everything is at stake in this election. Camila Bernal is in Wilmington, Delaware, with the latest from Joe Biden's campaign.
A lot's at stake. A lot's going to happen.
From Hawaii to Ohio, Wisconsin to North Carolina and Pennsylvania, Americans are turning out in big numbers this election day to cast their ballots.
I don't feel safe as a black man living in America. We must systematically make changes. So that is why I'm going into here. I'm exercising my right to vote.
More than 100 million people voted early, according to a survey of election officials by CNN, Edison Research, and Catalyst, setting records in many states. But officials say it could be days before all the votes are counted.
It's going to take us a little while to count, and that's why I think it's really important that we all prepare to be patient and make sure that we get this right.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden made a stop in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he visited his childhood home and spoke to people at a labor union.
All my basic values. I learned at my grandpa's table at 2446 North Washington Avenue that money does not determine your wealth.
President Donald Trump made a visit to his campaign headquarters in Arlington, Virginia.
I feel very good. After doing that many rallies, the voice gets a little bit choppy, I think.
And stay with us all evening long. We're just getting started here. You can expect more election night coverage from Fox 61. We're staying on the air for a special edition of the Fox 61 News at 5 and staying on at 6 p.m. Then join us at 8 p.m. on the Fox 61 app, Facebook page, YouTube channel. We're all over the place for live local coverage. Then back here on TV, as we are each night for the Fox 61 News at 10 and 11. It's a jam-packed night. We're 15 minutes into it.
We are. It's going to be a long one.
Get the coffee.
All right, let's talk about the weather right now. The good news for Election Day is we don't have to worry about the weather because it's been sunny and easy out there.
But we didn't give her the night off. She's still here. Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank. Hi, Rachel.
I'll be right here if you guys need me for anything. I'm here for moral support. But yeah, the weather is turning a lot quieter here moving forward. The wind has diminished, which is really good news. I want to show you guys the latest wind gusts across the state. Yeah, you're still feeling a bit of a breeze out there. 29 miles per hour for Hartford, 24 in Groton, but overall nothing we can't handle here as hardy New Englanders. I wanted to show you today's max wind gusts up to 37 miles per hour for Windsor Lock. So we did still see that surge in the winds overnight, although nothing compared to what we had during the day yesterday. And those winds will just continue to fall back as we head through the evening tonight. Satellite and radar is quiet, which is what we like to see. And as we head through the final polling hours here, we're talking about temperatures or time for you to cast your ballot, I should say. We're going to see temperatures dropping back into the upper 30s as we head towards 8 p.m., which is when you're able to cast your ballot until. After that, temperatures will be dropping back into the 20s. Take a look at these numbers as we head towards daybreak. Upper 20s for Windsor Locks, for Hartford, low to mid 30s for the Connecticut shoreline. So we're continuing with that wintry theme to start off the day tomorrow. But then we have some changes on the way. Temperatures will climb into the mid-50s to right around 60 degrees as we head through the afternoon. And I think temperatures will only continue to go up from there. 60s, a lot of them in the 7-day forecast coming up in just a bit.
All right, Rachel, thank you very much. In other news, an 18-year-old from West Haven has been arrested and charged in a Halloween homicide. Police responding to a serious assault on Washington Avenue and Elm Street Saturday. The victim was taken to the hospital and later died from his injuries a day later, that is. Terrence Johnson has been charged with murder and was arraigned today at Milford Court. He's now being held on $1 million bond.
All right, we have much more to come on the news at 4 today. Still ahead, rolling back reopening as COVID numbers trend up. We are looking at the changes being made to stop the spread.
And coming up on the news at 5, time off to go and vote. Some companies making a new effort to get you to the polls. More on the incentive to cast your ballot ahead on the news at 5. And as we head to break, looking live at long lines from polling locations nationwide, this specific spot in North Carolina. More on the high turnout for election 2020 ahead. And coming up, we're checking in live with Secretary of the State Denise Mayoral on voting here at home and how that's going.
And stay with us all evening long. You can expect more election night coverage. We are staying on the air for a special edition of the Fox 61 News at 6 o'clock. Join us at 8 p.m. as well on the Fox 61 app, Facebook page, YouTube channel for live local coverage. And then join us back here on TV for the Fox 61 News at 10. We are here all night for you.
I think it's a good thing, you know, as long as we can.
This election day comes amid the biggest surge in coronavirus cases since the outbreak began. The 7-day average for new infections is now over 80,000, and election officials are scrambling to make sure polling places don't turn
Well, folks, here in Connecticut, many of you are out and about today, voting in person all across the state. But Election Day comes right as Governor Lamont announced yesterday that Connecticut is moving back to a modified phase 2.
Yeah, this past weekend, we saw a 3.4% COVID positivity test rate here in the state. Now, when you compare that to the number last week, that's 6.1% that took us all by surprise. It's moving in the right direction, but the governor says he isn't taking any chances when it comes to trying to curb the spread and avoid future upticks. So the question, what do you need to know? A quick refresher on Election Day here. Restaurants will be reduced to a 50% capacity with a maximum of 8 people per table. These are the new guidelines for the new modified phase 2 starting midnight Friday. Also, places like movie theaters and bowling alleys will be required to close by 9:30 p.m. However, restaurants that offer takeout can remain open past 9:30s. Movie theaters will only be allowed to seat 100 people per showing. Places of worship will also scale back to 50% or 100 people max inside. Personal services like hair salons and nail salons, those will remain at 75% capacity. And lastly, event venues will be limited to 25 people indoors, 50 people outdoors. Diners at AAA Diner in East Hartford say they understand the rolling back.
I think it's a good thing, you know, as long as we can, we've got to get over this COVID thing. And, I agree with it, yes.
I think we live in a different time, and that is like a requirement to move forward. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same position.
State officials say they understand the negative impact this move can have on restaurants and are currently working with restaurant owners to create COVID-friendly outdoor dining experiences, especially when it comes to ensuring proper ventilation. Another thing to keep in mind, Governor Lamont is also recommending that people stay home between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., all in an effort to help prevent community spread.
Well, nationally, millions of Americans are heading to the polls as they are here in Connecticut. And again, this is happening as we see that massive uptick in coronavirus cases, not just here in Connecticut, but across the nation.
But election officials across the country say they're well prepared to keep voters safe. Griff Jenkins has more from Wilmington, Delaware, where former Vice President Joe Biden is expected to address the nation later tonight.
This election day comes amid the biggest surge in coronavirus cases since the outbreak began. The 7-day average for new infections is now over 80,000, and election officials are scrambling to make sure polling places don't turn into super spreaders. So far, most counties, especially those in swing states, say they're following CDC guidelines, and there's no reason for folks to stay away from the polls.
Wisconsinites should feel very confident that if they choose to cast their ballot at the polls on Tuesday, that it will be safe.
The CDC issued a statement Monday night reaffirming voters should not be disenfranchised even if they have coronavirus. The agency writing in part, quote, voters who are sick or in quarantine should take steps to protect poll workers and other voters. But some states, including Texas, have regulations allowing patients to vote from isolation if a doctor gives the okay.
You assign a representative who will come in, pick up the balloting materials, and return the balloting materials.
Both candidates have been hitting this issue hard on the campaign trail. President Trump once again urging his supporters to show up in big numbers on Tuesday.
They're supposed to be way ahead, right, in the early voting, then we catch them on election day.
A stance criticized as irresponsible by the Biden campaign.
So he refuses to do the work to get this virus under control.
And here, where the Biden campaign moved the DNC this past summer, we expect the former vice president to address the nation once a decision has been made. And much like the DNC, supporters won't be inside. They'll be out in this parking lot in their cars. In Wilmington, Delaware, Griff Jenkins, Fox 61 News.
Griff, thank you. New details from Vienna, Austria, after a gunman opened fire, killing at least 4 people and injuring more than 24 yesterday. Government officials there saying that the attack was connected to a radicalized person who sympathized with the Islamic State terror group. Police shot and killed that gunman, who's now being identified as a 20-year-old Islamist sympathizer who was released from jail back in December. The gunman reportedly opened fire at 6 different locations in the city Monday night. The chancellor saying that the attack was driven by hatred toward Austria's way of life.
Britain has now raised the terror threat level to severe following attacks in Austria as well as France. The Home Secretary in Britain saying the decision to increase the threat level was a precautionary measure and is not based on any specific threat.
Much more to come here on the News at 4 as we head to break. Long lines at polling locations all across the country as we look live in Londonderry, North Carolina right now. More on the high turnout for election 2020. Also ahead, we're interviewing the Secretary of the State, Denise Merrill, live on election security, polling locations, and, like we said, turnout here in Connecticut. Stay with us.
The day has arrived across the country and across Connecticut.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm really excited about it.
We continue our team coverage with more on the pulse of polling locations across the state.
It could be a record-setting day nationwide and here in Connecticut. Fox 61's Jimmy Altman joins us live from Farmington now with more. Happy Election Day, Jimmy.
Happy Election Day, Ben and Jen. We were actually at Farmington High School. Very busy this morning. A lot of voters lining up. The lot was full earlier today. Now that rush hour is coming, we think we'll get busier again. But right now, just I would say a steady stream as you take a look behind us here at Farmington High School. There have been voters coming in and out all day, and they're telling us here things have been working very well. All this for the 2020 presidential election and what looks to be an unprecedented turnout. The day has arrived across the country and across Connecticut.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm really excited about Election Day. I mean, who wouldn't be?
From Hartford to Farmington to Bristol, a brisk day and no surprise, a brisk turnout. There is a full lot at Farmington High School for election 2020.
Yeah, smooth sailing here in Farmington. The lines have been a little bit long in the morning, but they've calmed down now, and you know, everyone inside is doing a great job getting people in and out safely.
I've been waiting for 5 years, 5 years, since before the actual last election to change and move on. Time to move on.
For 18-year-old Senden Gorman, November 3rd is a first.
This is great. A great opportunity to have. No matter who I vote for, it'll be worth it. Just knowing that I'm doing my civic duty, doing what I can to help this country move forward.
In Bristol, the mayor says they're seeing numbers.
When you factor in the absentee ballots, we are at 51% turnout in Bristol, which is very good for a late morning count. And I'm assuming we are going to get to over 80% by close of business today.
And in this area, regardless of party lines, they're happy to endure a few voting lines.
You know, it's a great day to go out and exercise your constitutional right.
And at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and have everyone get that sticker and know that they were part of the process.
Sticker right here. A reminder, the polls stay open across Connecticut until 8 o'clock tonight. So if you are in line, you will be able to vote. So get out to vote. For now, we're live in Farmington. Jim Altman, Fox 61 News.
All right, Jimmy, thank you so much. We have much more ahead on the news at 4. We are seeing, as Jimmy was just saying, record participation this election, long lines this morning. And we have a lot of absentee ballots to count in this state. Will we find out the results tonight? A look at how voting is going in Connecticut so far. Secretary of the State Denise Merrill talking with us ahead.
And Fox 61 is the place to be. More guests coming up tonight. Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin joining us live shortly, talking about voter turnout and how the polls are looking in the capital city of Hartford. That and more ahead. Stick around. Welcome back here on this election day. We do want to get a check of your roads if you're heading out, going to a polling location. Rachel Lutzker joining us now with traffic. Hi, Rach.
Yeah, and Ben, overall, we seem to look really good. The highways are in decent shape. We do have one crash, though, and that will slow you down out through the Vernon area. So this is on the westbound side of 84. This is a crash that involves an overturned vehicle right out between exits 67 and 66. We've got the right and center lanes closed right now, and you can see a little bit of a backup showing up on this map here as you move on through. Beyond that, though, we look great. Traffic overall is light through downtown Hartford. Not so much in Waterbury, though. Here's the westbound side of 84. Usually a tough spot here. We had that setting sun, and then the delays moving down to the lower deck with the ongoing construction there. But through Hartford, again, looking pretty good, both along 84 and 91 as you head through the Wethersfield area. So north and southbound sides of I-91 check out just fine. As far as drive times, the only little hiccup is here through Fairfield. It's northbound side of I-95, just from Fairfield to Bridgeport, even on the Parkway from Westport to Trumbull. We are looking pretty good, and no major traffic troubles heading into New Haven, north and southbound sides of I-95. Jen, right over to you.
Rachel, thank you very much. All right, we have more to come on the news at 4. We're taking a closer look at what appears to be a second wave of coronavirus infections in the state, how hospitalizations could be an indicator of how the virus is spreading ahead in our Health Watch.
Plus, emotions running high, both the election and the pandemic all at one time, bringing a whole lot of stress and anxiety. You know that. We're going to speak to a doctor about how it can all be managed when the News at 4 continues. Stick around.
Specifically, right now, we're going to look at
many times when emotions are sort of running high, we may say.
Okay. Denise? Can you hear me?
I'm so bad at Zoom.
Can you undo your, let me see, can you guys, Neil, am I tracked with her?
Turn this off, yes.
Denise, can you hear me?
All right.
Is she muted?
Are you muted, Denise?
Bill, can you unmute Denise?
Can you hear me now, Denise? Can you hear me now, Denise?
I can.
You can. I can't hear her. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Woo. 30 seconds. All right, thanks for staying with us right here. Turnout today has been pretty incredible. We have Connecticut already seeing long lines this morning, and the participation has been also unprecedented. We've had more than 600,000 200,000 absentee ballots sent in before Election Day. I want to bring in right now the Secretary of the State, Denise Merrill. Thanks for joining us. I know you're incredibly busy right now, but what are you seeing for turnout? I mean, the lines this morning were any indication. The fact that we have the absentee ballots and we have these long lines shows incredible participation, right?
Yes, and the rumor is that the lines are forming again, which they usually do about this time of night as people get off work and so forth. So yes, the turnout seems sky high, and absentee ballots are still coming in. By the way, it's good to remind people you can still put that absentee ballot in the ballot box right up till 8 o'clock tonight. So could be even more. Just the absentee ballots were about 25% of the entire electorate.
Yeah, what are you seeing for ballots or for lines right now? You're saying you're starting to see this after work rush?
Yes, they are building again. Frequently they look longer than they are because, of course, people are standing 6 feet apart. But they are, 45 minutes to an hour in some places. And that makes me kind of unhappy, honestly. But it is great to see the turnout.
We have, again, more than 600,000 absentee ballots that were sent in, and those weren't able to be opened until 6 o'clock this morning. What are you hearing about how counting is going? Do you think we're going to have results tonight, or is this something that's going to carry on for a day or two or past that?
To be honest, I think it'll be at least another day because a lot of those ballots cannot be counted until after the polls close at 8, especially those that come in today, because you have to cross-check it with the list. So I would anticipate most of the smaller towns will probably be done this evening, but some of the larger cities may take another day.
We've had a little bit of confusion from viewers writing into us about this whole deal of the fact that you can bring your own pen or pencil to the polls. I was told by your office that you can. I brought mine today to the polling location. Just clarify that for people who are writing in, our viewers. For us.
Yes, they can, although different polling places are handling it differently. I heard from someone in, I think it was Essex, where they're actually giving people pens that say I voted. So each town is a little different. When I went to my polling place, they gave me a pencil and then they just had me drop it in a box afterwards. But yes, you can bring your own pen or pencil and just take it out with you, sure.
And it's important to note that the machines are all the same across the state, right? You can use a pencil, you can use a black pen, you can use a blue pen, correct?
Correct, as long as you fill in that little bubble as fully as you can so that the machine will record it.
All right, we haven't seen too many issues at the polls, although we had this incident down in New London that we know we spoke to you about. Have the voters been contacted? We know that the wrong ballots were sent in, and because the tabulator, they thought it went down, but it ended up that they were the wrong ballots. The tabulator wasn't taking it, and they were trying to get in touch with some 70 voters who had already put through their ballot. What are you hearing about that incident?
I haven't heard whether they've reached them all, but they are certainly trying. And fortunately, this year we have a lot of volunteers that have been put to work doing things like that. So I'm sure we can resolve that. I mean, honestly, before that makes a difference, we're allowing those people to have their vote counted for everything except the one state representative race, which is the only one that's different. So their votes will count for president on down to the state rep race. So the only place it could make a difference would be in that one race. And unless it's close enough that 70 votes make a difference, even that will be kind of a moot point.
All right, Secretary of the State Denise Merrill, we are going to be speaking with you throughout the evening, and we're looking forward to it. We appreciate your time right now.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, back now to our team coverage tonight on elections here in Connecticut.
Fox 61's Keith McGilvery joining us live from Hartford with more on how voting is going there. Keith.
Jen and Ben, good afternoon to the two of you. Jen, I want to pick up where you left off with the Secretary of the State and talk about turnout for a moment. Just went inside. This happens to be my home precinct. My neighbors working the polls here, they said for the primary, they saw about 125 people turn out or so. For that. Today, they have already seen nearly 800 people describing the turnout as phenomenal. People getting through the line pretty darn quickly here, unlike the pictures we showed you in that breaking news in the Fox 61 morning news this morning. Spoke with a neighbor who I met for the first time this afternoon when I voted around noon. Her name's Tanisha Campbell, and she had a message for everyone at home about getting out to vote.
It's important because us as Americans, we need a voice. We need to be equal. We need to have equality for every American, not just black and brown, for every American. So it's important for us to vote because we can't have change unless we vote. We can't complain without change. We have to vote. We have to get up and vote. If we don't vote, we can't make a change.
If you don't vote, you can't make a change. Tanisha making that special plea specifically to the 18 to 25-year-old crowd. She says she would like to see more of them out here. And the good news is you can still vote through 8 p.m. at this location. My special plea to folks at home, if you took photos at the polls today, hashtag Share61 if you brought the kiddos along. I would love to see them. We will be sharing them throughout the morning on the Fox 61 Morning News from 4 to 11 o'clock when we join you then. Do want to point out as well, coming up new on the Fox 61 News at 5 p.m., our former chief investigator Brian Foley will join me here live at the polls to talk about efforts taking place across the state of Connecticut to make sure things go smoothly and folks are safe at the polls. So there is a lot new ahead here from Hartford, but for now, live at my own precinct and polling location, I'm Keith McGilvery, Fox 61 News. Ben and Jen, happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day, Keith. Thanks. We'll see you at 5. Meanwhile, much more to come here on the news at 4. If you haven't voted yet and you're looking for a ride to the polls, don't worry about it. Uber and Lyft helping out in a big way today. We'll share how they're getting involved ahead.
Plus, Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank is on the weather watch on this election night. Another check of the forecast when we return.
Mayor Bronin, it's Ben. Can you hear me?
Hey, Ben. Yeah, I got you. How you doing?
Could you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yep. Welcome back. Fox 61 is the place to be here on Election 2020. We're welcoming another person to our Election Day party. That would be Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin. Mayor Bronin, thanks for joining us on this Election Day.
Good to be with you, Ben.
So talk to me about voting turnout in the capital city. Are you seeing long lines, a lot of people coming out?
We did see long lines this morning. Turnout has been strong throughout the day. You know, based on the numbers that we've seen as of mid-afternoon, I think that we're on pace to have more votes cast today than in 2008, the first time that President Barack Obama was on the ballot. So significant turnout here in Hartford, as it is, it seems, around the state and around the country.
Mayor, you know, a lot of local races here in this state, obviously the presidential race. What does today mean for your city specifically?
Well, the city of Hartford does not have a lot of competitive legislative races, but there's an enormous amount at stake for our city, for our community, for our state, and for our country. I think this really is the most consequential election of my lifetime. And, even though Connecticut is likely to go blue, this is about something bigger than that. This is about our chance to raise our voice and to express our view on, what we believe America stands for and ought to stand for. And, for me, this is about the future of our democracy. It's about a return to decency. It's about a return to genuine dialogue. And it's about getting away from the division of the last 4 years.
Over the weekend, we saw a parade of Trump supporters. We've seen many different rallies and groups supporting either candidate in Hartford. Have there been any security issues today, to your knowledge?
No, we have not had any issues to this point, as far as I know, and things have been smooth throughout the day. Obviously, until all is said and done, we're going to be paying close and careful attention. But from the moment the polls opened early this morning, the only issue that we've had have been long lines of polling places, and that's just an indication of how anxious people are to raise their voice today.
In our last 30 seconds, Mayor, someone at home could be watching the two of us living in Hartford. They haven't gone out to vote yet. They're worried that they're not going to make it, whether the lines be long. Your message to them.
Look, this is a historic election. You want to be part of it. You want to cast a vote today for the direction you think this country needs to go. And, I have obviously strong feelings about this election. I think we have a chance to begin repairing the damage of the last few years and getting this country back on track. But regardless of how you vote, our democratic process should be a sacred one. Come out and exercise your right to vote. You've got 3 hours till polls close. Come out, cast your vote, be part of this.
Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin, we always appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
And again, it's a nice night out there, a little chilly, but this is good for election eve as people finish work and head to the polls. We want to turn things over to Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank, who is joining us right now with a look at the forecast. Rachel, chilly out there, but that's going to change, right?
Yeah, we have a warming trend that's on the way. Temperatures in the 50s tomorrow, 60s after that for quite a stretch, and also a dry stretch of weather too. So at least here in the weather department, there's not much going on. Around the time the polls close, temperatures will be in the 30s. Low temperatures tonight, though, dropping back into the 20s. I know what you're thinking. Wait, where is this warming trend? So we start off in the 20s to around 30 degrees first thing tomorrow morning. By afternoon, we're in the 50s to around 60 degrees with mostly sunny skies. We're going to hang out with that sunshine and temperatures climbing well through the 60s on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. Lots of time to get out and enjoy some fresh air. Temperatures flirting with the 70-degree mark on Sunday. Your shoreline 7-day, mid-60s Thursday, Friday, even upper 60s at the beaches on Sunday, guys.
All right, Rachel, thank you very much. Rideshare rivals Uber and Lyft can agree on one thing. They want you to vote. Both companies are offering discounts to polling locations. Lyft is offering half off one ride up to $10 to any polling place or drop box using the code 2020VOTE for today only. Uber is offering half off round trip rides to and from polling locations up to $7 each way or $14 round trip. This offer is only for Election Day as well.
We also wanted to see some of your Election Day selfies, so many of them on Instagram and Facebook. Here's Zeta Murphy showing off her I voted sticker on her mask from Clinton. Very on brand for 2020.
And here's Phil Antonin. He says he was first in line at a polling station in New Haven this morning. And the process, he said, was quick, organized, communal. He also wanted to thank poll workers for their efforts in making today as stress-free as possible.
And New Haven Mayor Justin Elicker tweeting out this photo today with his family after casting his own ballot this morning.
All right, you can expect more coming up. The news at 5, just a few minutes away.
Brent Harden joining us now with a look at what's ahead next hour on this election night. Brent.
A lot to get to next hour. We might mention it's election night. Of course we will. It's all election coverage tonight. We begin with those long lines out the door at polling locations across the state. Ben was just talking to Mayor Bronin about as the country sees a record number of voters, we are keeping track of the key races here in our state. President Trump and Joe Biden finished making their final pitch to the voters. Now it's a wait-and-see attitude. Campaign season coming to a head this evening. We'll tell you where those candidates spent their time today and where they plan on being tonight to watch the results come in.
A ballot issue in New London leads to voters voting for the wrong race in the wrong district. What had to be done before it was too late. I'll have that story coming up at 5 on Fox 61 News.
Now at 5, it's decision day across the nation. Election 2020 is here.
So it's important to come out and vote.
This is our duty as U.S. citizens.
Long lines, a historic turnout at polling places, some waiting for hours to vote.
It's pretty incredible this year. I've never seen anything like it. The lines here are unbelievably long.
A battle of the ballots and the race to win the White House.
All I meant was restore basic decency and honor to the White House.
And we will make America great again.
Voters are still at the polls, but millions of ballots were cast in advance. We're tracking how you will make an impact on the races, both here at home and in Washington, D.C. Team coverage and the news at 5 starts right now.
Fox 61 News at 5 starts now.
And thanks for joining us for the Fox 61 News at 5. I'm Amanda Rouse.
And I'm Brent Harden, and we begin, of course, with the 2020 election. There's about 3 hours left to cast your vote now. Here in Connecticut, polls are open until 8 p.m. for all those who wish to vote in person for president, as well as state legislative and congressional races throughout the state. This morning, the polls opened up at 6 a.m. and lines wrapped around buildings at that point. Of course, people are social distancing and masking up. As of this morning, a record-breaking 97 million Americans had already voted. That's almost twice as many pre-election votes as were cast in the 2016 election. And the race to the White House continues now, hours before election counts. Neither President Trump nor Joe Biden wasted any time making last-minute pleas to voters.
All campaigns talked a lot about turnout being the key to the presidential and local elections. State leaders say Connecticut is doing its part, even with the unusual circumstances of the coronavirus pandemic.
I think all our planning is paying off.
I don't know what it is, whether it's because people have been home and they're just anxious to vote. And I think it's wonderful. I can throw away all those speeches I used to make about the apathy of voters, because nobody's apathetic this year.
Secretary of the State Denise Mayoral added that there is no campaigning allowed outside of polling places. That means if you are wearing any apparel with a candidate's name on it, you will be asked to remove that in order to vote. And there are a number of races we are watching in Connecticut. In the 1st Congressional District, incumbent John Larson is going up against Mary Fay and Tom McCormick. Then we have Connecticut's 2nd Congressional District. Incumbent Joe Courtney is being challenged by Justin Anderson, Daniel Reel, and Cassandra Martineau. The 3rd Congressional District sees incumbent Rosa DeLauro facing off with Margaret Stryker and Justin Paglino. The 4th Congressional District putting incumbent Jim Himes up against Jonathan Riddle and Brian Merlin. And in the 5th Congressional District, incumbent Johanna Hayes is being challenged by David X. Sullivan and Bruce Walsack.
All right, take a look at some of the front pages of newspapers across Connecticut as we await the results to begin coming in from what is considered, of course, one of the most historic elections of our time. Fox 61 keeping you covered throughout the night and up to speed on election 2020. We have live team coverage now through 11:30 tonight. State leaders are expecting high voter turnout this election, and it's looking like we're on track to meet that prediction, given the crowds we've been seeing at polling places throughout the day. Fox 61's Angelo Bavaro has a closer look.
Take your time. A global pandemic and chilly weather did not keep voters away from the polls early Tuesday morning.
I've been here since 5:45.
This was the scene at Harborside Middle School in Milford around 7 a.m. where the line wrapped around the entire building. It was a similar scene over in New Fairfield with long lines of voters stretching down the sidewalk as the sun came up. And those long lines being seen in several other cities and towns across the state as well. All of these voters waiting in line masked up and standing apart from one another.
So far it's been moving quickly. Everyone is in good spirits and we're all in this together. We brought coffee.
People need to get their voices heard on all different issues, and this is our duty as U.S. citizens.
Not every polling place saw long lines, though. We saw a steady stream of voters walking in and out of Mead School in Ansonia, but there was no line out the door. Voter Cameron Hunt says he was in and out.
I think it ran very smoothly. I think, as long as everyone wears their mask and, uses hand sanitizer and gets in and gets out and doesn't lollygag around and talk to whoever, and it runs good.
Hunt and other voters saying the long lines are not surprising.
I mean, I feel like other than previous years, we've had a lot of people that's come out to vote this year especially, and this is a very important election. I think that people understand that.
I've gotten out even whether I'm sick or not. It's a privilege and an honor, and it's a right.
The polls here in Connecticut close at 8 o'clock tonight, and very important to note that if you are still in line at 8 o'clock, you are still allowed to cast a vote. Reporting in Ansonia, Angelo Bafaro, Fox 61 News.
And a big race here. We're all watching the presidential election. Over the last several days, President Trump has held several rallies in battleground states, hoping for a turnout that will lead to victory. Today, the First Lady made her vote official in Florida. And as we head into the last hours of Election Day, Lauren Blanchard is in Washington with the latest.
I'm hearing we're doing well all over. I hear the lines are amazing. The lines have been amazing. And I think we're going to have a great night.
President Trump making a visit to his campaign headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, expressing optimism about his chances to win re-election.
I feel very good. After doing that many rallies, the voice gets a little bit choppy, I think.
Millions of voters all throughout the U.S. waited until today to cast their vote. In a year where the country is dealing with the impact of a pandemic, a record number of voters have already submitted their ballots by mail. President Trump has held multiple rallies in states he hopes will deliver him a victory.
This is going to be a historic night. I think the polls have been so inaccurate with this president.
States like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin propelled then-candidate Donald Trump to victory in 2016. And now he's hoping to match that same success again. Florida is also critical.
I think the president's going to be in a really good position.
President Trump revealed he has not thought of an acceptance nor concession speech yet. The president is planning to watch tonight's results at the White House. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox 61 News.
Back here at home, Governor Ned Lamont was met with cheers as he exercised his right to vote this morning. He and his wife voted in Greenwich. He told Cruz that he was voting for Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden. The governor also visited 6 more polling places today to thank voters for coming out and doing their civic duty.
And so with voters flooding to the polls, months of campaigning have come to an end, but Joe Biden didn't miss an opportunity today to rally his party. Fox's Caroline Shively looks at how Biden spent his election day so far.
Joe Biden is spending election night here in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware, but he spent much of the day in Pennsylvania, a critical state in this 2020 election. Joe Biden spending his final hours before polls close back in the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ahead of his stop in Philadelphia, the former vice president also visited Scranton, where he wrote on the wall of his childhood home, "From this house to the White House with the grace of God." While Pennsylvania holds 20 electoral votes, Biden campaign officials maintain there is a path to victory even if the president should win the Keystone State.
Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, and Texas. As we look at these 4 big states, while we believe we can win all 4 of them, and we are doing everything in our power to do that, we don't need to win them, and that's a true luxury.
In Florida, another swing state, Biden's wife Jill spent Election Day campaigning for her husband.
We're not exhausted. We are ready to get to work.
Meantime, Biden's running mate, Kamala Harris, spent her final day on the campaign trail stumping in Detroit.
We will not be sidelined in this election.
Tonight, Biden plans to address the nation from the Chase Center, the same spot where he formally accepted his party's nomination in August. In Wilmington, Delaware, Caroline Shively, Fox 61 News.
Moving over to North Haven now, the race for Connecticut's 3rd congressional district, where incumbent Rosa DeLauro is facing 2 challengers. Fox 61's Tony Tersey continues our team coverage. Tony.
Hey, Amanda. Yes, her primary challenger is a woman who has run very successful real estate business. We'll get into that in just a minute. Set the scene here at North Haven's Clintonville Elementary, a K-5 school, largest voting district here in the town, and they say they've never seen anything like the turnout here today. Now back to the race between Rosa DeLauro and primarily Margaret Stryker. Rosa has been the district's representative in Congress since she first ran back in 1990, 30 years. Rarely has she had a challenge, but this year it seems to be a little bit different. We're talking about Republican challenger Margaret Stryker, who grew up in Milford and has built an accomplished real estate business. She's turned heads when she was endorsed about 3 weeks ago by the New Haven Police Union and several other police unions, as well as the Connecticut Fraternal Order of Police. But DeLauro's campaign has called Stryker a liar on a couple of fronts and a slumlord.
She was voted one of the 10 worst landlords in New York, and she was also fined $1.2 million by the New York Attorney General for, this is their language, for harassing, intimidating tenants and demolishing housing units.
I am not now, nor have I ever been a slumlord. I do take over properties that are in tremendous states of disrepair, and I fix them up. That is, bettering the property. That's improving the living spaces for all who reside there, and I am proud of the work product that I do.
Stryker says her campaign is very pleased with the exit polling they've received. She says voters, including some Democrats, tell her that they are ready for a change after 30 years. DeLauro, on the other hand, says her experience in Washington is extremely valuable to her constituents, including the fact that she is the chairperson of the Subcommittee of Appropriations, which focuses on health, education, and jobs. Now back here in North Haven, as has been the case across the state, the registrar's office says around here it's been, quote, cuckoo today, meaning in terms of the number of voters. They say they expect to surpass 2016's presidential election, which saw 82% of registered voters turned out, and they said they expect to pass that percentage by a wide margin. We're live in North Haven at the Clintonville School. I'm Tony Tersey, Fox 61 News.
All right, Tony, thank you. And it's down to the wire in the always interesting 5th Congressional District, where Jahana Hayes is trying to fend off David Sullivan to keep her seat in Congress. Fox 61's Matt Caron has been following the race and explains now what makes it so unique. Matt.
Well, you're right, Brenton. I just got off the phone with the registrar's office here in Cheshire, where we are live, and I want to give you a little update on turnout. Nearly 70% of the voters just here in Cheshire, just one of the 41 communities in the 5th Congressional District, have cast their ballots. That's over 7,000 absentee ballots that have come in here in Cheshire, and nearly 6,000 people who have come so far in person, and we still have 3 hours left. This is, of course, rush hour. Things are going to pick up as people get out of work. But the big race here, the 5th Congressional District seat, it hasn't been held by a Republican since Nancy Johnson in 2004. Make no mistake about it, however, this district is very much up for grabs. The 5th District is the 2nd largest in Connecticut geographically, and it's very diverse because it encompasses both major cities like Meriden and Waterbury, Democratic strongholds usually in those population areas, and many smaller rural towns in western Connecticut that typically turn out more Republican. With that being said, it should come as no surprise that both Jahana Hayes and David Sullivan, the candidates here, have tried to distance themselves from the extremes of their party. Jahana Hayes has accused David Sullivan of personal attacks, while David Sullivan has accused Hayes of being an absentee representative who supports lawlessness.
That's absurd. My husband has sacrificed to the City of Waterbury Police Department over 20 years, and I've been right by his side. So it's absurd. And, you know, at the other side of this, I'll continue to work to support police and the spouses and families of police officers, and I will be his congresswoman as well.
You know, Connecticut's still in that recession of 2007, 2008. We have negative gross domestic product. I really want to get working with this president, President Trump. We had 7 million new jobs, 1.2 new manufacturing jobs in this country. It's time it came to Connecticut, and I'm going to be working with a lot of fine people in the Congress and also in the state legislature.
Now, there is also an independent candidate in this race. We should mention that. His name is Bruce Walzak. He is from Newtown, and he believes that the two-party system is dysfunctional. So again, as we go throughout the night, turnout is going to be picking up here. They expect to break the turnout that they had in the last presidential election here in Cheshire, which was just over 92%. So very high voter turnout, a lot of enthusiasm. We'll just see how that translates when the votes are counted. For now, we're live in Cheshire. Matt Caron, Fox 61 News.
All right, Matt, thank you. And stay with us all evening long. You can expect more election night coverage. We're staying on the air for a special edition of the Fox 61 News at 6. Join us at 8 p.m. on the Fox 61 app, Facebook page, and YouTube channel for live local coverage. And then back here on TV for the Fox 61 News at 10 and 11 tonight.
And coming up at 5, rolling back to phase 2, the new restrictions starting Friday as Connecticut continues to fight COVID-19. Plus, how safe are those outdoor dining tents? What the state is saying about the arrangements at restaurants and why some are a no-go.
And chilly out there again tonight, but this little preview of winter is soon to be over. Tomorrow, our transition day, leading to some much warmer temperatures. We'll explain coming up.
And as we head to the break, check out these long lines across the nation, people getting out to vote. A reminder here in Connecticut, it's not too late to make your vote count. Polls close at 8. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank here on the Weather Watch. A beautiful shot of the sun setting earlier here over Hartford. The sun's going down earlier and earlier now since the time change, but at least it was a beautiful one, capping off what started off as a windy day, but finished a lot more comfortable. And we do have some milder temperatures on the way. That's the big story here in the 7-day that you'll see in just a moment. But if you're heading out to cast your ballot as we head through the remainder of time, 8 o'clock, you got to be in line by 8 o'clock. Quiet weather, but it will be chilly with temperatures that will be dropping back into the 30s by the time the polls close. I want to take a step back from our local weather just for a moment because we have actually a really devastating situation that's unfolding right now for Central America. This is Nicaragua. This is Hurricane Eta making landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. Not only talking about storm surge in Nicaragua, that's up to 14 to 20 feet, but also some areas could receive anywhere from 20 to 40 inches of rainfall. Just kind of adding insult to injury. This is a very slow moving storm. It's only moving to the west at 5 miles per hour. Again, whenever you have these really slow moving storms, you are talking about quite a bit of rainfall. So mudslides are going to be an issue as the storm crosses into Honduras. After that, we'll be watching the storm. It may end up doing kind of a loop-de-loop here and then going back into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is Sunday. We have a lot of time to watch it at that point. But again, just an ugly situation there in Nicaragua. That's going to be a big story, and they're going to need a lot of help, I think, cleaning up after this storm, unfortunately. All right, here locally cold with temperatures dropping back into the 20s to around 30 degrees tonight. But it's a chilly start to the day tomorrow, and tomorrow's kind of our transition day. It's a milder finish. We climb into the 50s, but we do better than that. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, highs in the 60s. It's nice that we're kind of moving past this little winter preview here, but the only bad news is it's another dry stretch ahead. So after getting some much needed rain, and I don't know if I can say much needed snow, but we did get some liquid that came out of it. We're back to our kind of regularly scheduled programming with more dry weather. Gusts to 25 in Groton, not too bad though. Temperatures are in the 30s to mid 40s out there at the moment. We're quiet after seeing an early morning rain or snow shower, and not only quiet here, but quiet almost all across the country. It's kind of weird that the weather is cooperating with us for once. Mostly clear skies tonight with low temperatures in the 20s to around 30 degrees. Tomorrow we're up around 60 with mostly sunny skies, and we'll climb into the low to mid 60s on Thursday, again with bright sunshine. That warming trend continues Friday and Saturday with highs in the upper 60s, close to 70 on Sunday. Next chance for showers is going to be at this time next week. Quick peek at your shoreline 7-day, mid to upper 60s this weekend.
Rachel, thanks. Yet back to the pandemic now in Connecticut, rolling back to phase 2 in hopes of stopping the spread of COVID-19. Restaurants will be reduced to 50% capacity with a maximum of 8 people per table. Also, places like movie theaters and bowling alleys will be required to close by 9:30 p.m. Places of worship will also scale back to 50% capacity. Personal services like hair salons will remain at 75% capacity now. And lastly, event venues will be limited to 25 people indoors, 50 people outdoors. And one more thing to keep in mind, Governor Lamont is recommending that people stay home between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. All of it, of course, in an effort to help prevent community spread.
And some of you have questions about these new measures and the safety of eating at restaurants. Patty wrote to Share 61 about outdoor dining tents, asking, is that really eating outdoors if all sides are down? On Route 1 along the shoreline of Westbrook, we're seeing these tents and are wondering, is it safe? Well, this is something that is being considered by the state to make sure that outdoor dining tents do have the proper ventilation to be considered safely dining outdoors. Department of Economic and Community Development Commissioner David Lehman addressed this issue during Governor Lamont's coronavirus briefing yesterday.
What we're focused on is ventilation and new air coming into those vehicles and those structures. To the extent that there is ventilation similar to an indoor dining room, we're going to be comfortable with that. If it is a tent or a place where there isn't ventilation, we think there's significant risk of transmission, and that's what we're trying to protect against.
He said that the state is working with restaurants to look at their setups. Some restaurants will not be able to use their tents if they're not properly ventilated. Other restaurants have received special permission to use dining structures. For example, Millwrights in Simsbury is allowed to use outdoor greenhouses for customer dining.
All right, ahead on the news at 5, emotions running high, the election, the pandemic, the impacts of both bringing stress and anxiety. We'll talk to a doctor about how to manage it all.
A ballot issue in New London leads to voters voting for the wrong race in the wrong district. What had to be done before it was too late. I'll have that story coming up at 5 on Fox 61 News.
And less than 3 hours now until the polls close at 8. If you are voting in person today, a reminder before we head to the break, it's recommended you bring your own pen. You're not required to wear a mask, but you are urged to. And state leaders are reminding you that you cannot wear any kind of campaign apparel supporting any candidate in your polling place. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. A polling place in New London ran into a hiccup this morning with in-person voting. Workers at the registrar's office saying that they are fixing the issue. Fox 61's Carmen Chow is in New London with what happened.
Amanda, the wrong pack of ballots got distributed to the wrong district this morning. I did speak to someone at the registrar's office who told me this did not cause any delays or further issues. Stacks of ballots in packs of 100 got picked in the morning, and those belonging to the 41st Assembly race ended up going into the 39th. It was not until the ballots were put into the tabulator when the office realized something was wrong.
When the ballots wouldn't go in the machine was spitting them back out because of the wrong ballot. They thought there was a tabulator problem, so they shut down the tabulator.
And in the midst of figuring out what was going on, voters temporarily put their ballots into what is called the auxiliary bin. It was later determined to be a ballot issue when a second tabulator also spit the ballots back out. That is when the workers had to call those voters back to vote again for the correct district.
We agreed that we were going to try to contact the people. We have our voter checklist program, which is being what checks off the names of the people. And we started to see how many people voted during that time, their names during that time period.
Giesing says it was up to 70 people that had to re-vote, as some did not even want to vote for that race. So they knew it was an issue that had to be quickly fixed. Secretary of the State Denise Merrill was notified about the incident.
We're going to allow them to vote for all the offices except for the one that's in question, and that would be 2 different state rep districts. And those people, they're working right now on calling them all, finding out who they are, and allowing them to vote just for that office, but their vote will count.
The 70 people that were affected were already notified, but if you personally have not yet been notified, you're urged to come back and vote again, and polls here don't close until 8 o'clock tonight. Reporting in New London, Carmen Chow, Fox 61 News.
Carmen, thank you. Well, ahead on the news at 5, election emotions, a time of stress on Election Day, how you can cope with today, tips from a doctor when we come back.
It's important because us as Americans, we need a voice. We need to be equal. We need to have equality for every American.
And throughout the day, we asked you, why do you plan to vote? Send us an email to let us know, share61@fox61.com, and stay with us. Team coverage continues on the election when we come back.
Our election team coverage continues now. State leaders looking to keep you safe at the polls today. Fox 61's Keith McGilvery joins us in Hartford with how the state prepared. Keith.
Amanda, good evening. Good to spend a little bit of time with you. Want to start off with this polling location in Hartford. Record turnout, more than 800 people here at my home precinct. And everything has been going smoothly. People are welcoming. They are kind and professional. But we know it is a heightened political climate. Tensions can run high around elections and efforts underway to make sure that people stay safe. Brian Foley with the Department of Emergency Service and Public Protection joining us. You know him well. Brian, how are things going across Connecticut?
Well, so there's been a lot of preparation, Keith. First, the governor, his main concern over the last couple months was that this would be a safe day for Connecticut residents. And Commissioner Ravella has been planning for a safe election day for the entire state for a while now. Connecticut State Police have been planning, and they have troopers obviously all around the state. But again, you're not seeing a heavy police presence at the polls, but they are monitoring. A lot of it is traffic in and out earlier. But look, there's not going to, I don't want to say now how it's going, but it certainly could be worse at this point. But we're watching, and it's a lot of people. The Office of the Secretary of State did a great job getting a lot of the legal education out to the police officers, but the Division of Emergency Management, I talked to Director Hackett this afternoon. His regional coordinators are still talking to CTIC, and CTIC is the Connecticut Intelligence Center, and really it is the quintessential intelligence center for law enforcement in the state. And they're watching everything locally, they're watching everything internationally and nationally. They report out every hour or beyond, or more, depending on what's going on, and they have been reporting on incidents around the world and around the country, and anything, even minor things around the state. But to this point, it's been quiet.
Brian, Election Day is one thing. As the results come in, the dynamic certainly could change. What are you and your team thinking about as we head into tomorrow and potentially several days moving forward?
Commissioner Ravella has made sure that the Division of Emergency Management and CTIC stay up and are monitoring. Obviously, today is just day one. And obviously the beginning for law enforcement to keep everyone safe. To this point, the state of Connecticut for the last several years has been fantastic in keeping things calm and in control, and we look for that to continue. At the same time, we're not on alert, but certainly law enforcement leaders, both locally around the state and at the state level, have a heightened sense of awareness and are communicating, obviously, for the next few days, just watching. And really, it's going to depend on the national, I don't want to say flavor, but how things are going nationally. And usually that's reflected in the state, so we'll keep an eye on what happens.
Brian Foley, we appreciate your time. Should point out that there are signs all around this school not endorsing candidates. They simply say, be kind, Amanda. It is an attitude that is reflected here across the city of Hartford, and hopefully one that will continue both across Connecticut and the country as well. Quick reminder, our team will join you from 4 to 11 a.m. tomorrow on the morning show. As those results come in, if you're taking any photos, send them our way. Share61 at fox61.com. Excuse me, but for now, live in Hartford tonight, Keith McGilvery, Fox 61 News.
All right, Keith, thank you. In and around central Connecticut, we are checking the pulse of the polls, from voting lines to the excitement of the voters themselves. Fox 61's Jim Altman joins us from Farmington now with more. Jim?
And Brent, we come to you live from Farmington High School, where this morning it was really busy. You were hearing that for a lot of polling places all around the state. Absolutely the case here at Farmington High School. Lines out the door. Right now, I would say a steady flow at best. Most people, we think, have made it to the polls already. The lot right now is about half full, but we'll give you a live look. As you can see, well, just a couple of people here and a guard out front, but all of this for the 2000 presidential election, or I should say 2020 presidential election. What looks like to be overall an unprecedented turnout. The day has arrived across the country and across Connecticut.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm really excited about Election Day. I mean, who wouldn't be?
From Hartford to Farmington to Bristol, a brisk day and, no surprise, a brisk turnout. There is a full lot at Farmington High School for election 2020.
Yeah, smooth sailing here in Farmington. The lines have been a little bit long in the morning, but they've calmed down now, and you know, everyone inside is doing a great job getting people in and out safely.
I've been waiting for 5 years, 5 years, since before the actual last election to to change and move on. Move on. Time to move on.
For 18-year-old Senden Gorman, November 3rd is a first.
This is great. A great opportunity to have. No matter who I vote for, it'll be worth it. Just knowing that I'm doing my civic duty, doing what I can to help this country move forward.
In Bristol, the mayor says they're seeing numbers.
When you factor in the absentee ballots, we are at 51% turnout in Bristol, which is very good for a late morning count. And I'm assuming we are going to get to over 80% by close of business today.
And in this area, regardless of party lines, they're happy to endure a few voting lines.
You know, it's a great day to go out and exercise your constitutional right.
I think Election Day is going really well. I've seen so many new faces. I'm talking to neighbors and friends. Everybody has a voting plan in place that I've talked to. So that is really a great thing.
And overall, we think it has gone well throughout the state. A reminder, you still have about 2.5 hours to make it to the polls. The doors close at 8 o'clock. If you are online before that, at 8 o'clock, you will be allowed to vote. Tonight, we're live in Farmington. Jim Altman, Fox 61 News.
All right, Jim, thank you. This 2020 election, coupled with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, has really created a lot of stress and anxiety for a lot of people. Today, a Yukon health psychologist said she has seen an increased number of patients feeling the stress, not just from the pandemic, but also from the election. And she shared some tips that you can use if you find yourself in a stressful situation, maybe talking to a family member or a friend about the election.
People have described, especially in the last couple of weeks, but even over the past few months, a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration, anger, sadness about the whole political climate that we're dealing with right now. A lot of the social divisions and the conflicts, that people might have with others in their circle that they hadn't even thought about before.
And one more piece of advice she shared is to avoid having these conversations when you're upset. That's often when people say things they regret.
Moving to Bridgeport now, where a special election monitor was appointed by state lawmakers for this day. Fox 61's Dave Puglisi is live with more on the reason why. Dave.
Amanda, we're at Blackham Middle School here in Bridgeport, where at last check, about 1,700 people have already cast their vote. And as you can see, there are still a number of people here waiting to do that as the line wraps around the building. Now, people tell me lines have been moving quick and things have gone smoothly, and that is in part due to the monitor that was appointed here. That monitor, Max Medina, was appointed by the Secretary of State's office to monitor polling in Bridgeport. The state felt that there was a need for one after having issues in the past with elections. They either haven't run smoothly or some have challenged the validity of the results. This year, Medina has been in touch with all 20 polling locations and their staff multiple times before the elections to make sure that they are all staffed up. He has been at every single polling station today, and so far only a couple of minor issues were reported. All have been fixed and everyone's vote has been counted.
Blackham Middle School probably has had 1,600 people vote here already, and tonight we'll get another rush after work, and as you can see, that line is pretty long, but it's moving well.
It's moving pretty fast. I've been in line probably 20 minutes tops, and the weather nice, so it makes a difference.
Now, Medina says that they know of 13,000 absentee ballots that have been submitted already, and they're expecting hundreds more before the close of polls at 8 o'clock tonight. Remember, if you are in this line at 8 o'clock when polls close, you will still have a chance to vote. In Bridgeport, Dave Puglisi, Fox 61 News.
Dave, thanks. And if you are voting in person today, point your phone's camera at this QR code right now. We want to make sure that you know who and what is on your ballot. You can get a preview of your voting district's ballot right now on fox61.com. You can also find it on the Fox 61 News app. Still ahead, the company is giving employees a day off to vote, why one right here in Connecticut decided to close for business today.
Welcome back on this chilly but quiet election day. And we're finishing, well, this was earlier. I shouldn't say we're finishing election day with a beautiful sunset because sunset now is around 4:40. But we got this one in from Clean78 on Twitter in Middletown. Absolutely beautiful. And Jeff Aborn in Staffordville sharing this photo from this morning when there was a scattered rain or snow shower earlier today, especially for the northern part of Connecticut. That was really spotty. Most of us didn't see it, but still a cooler day out there with high temperatures climbing into the 40s. That's about 10 degrees below average for this time of year. The average high 57. We're going to be closer to this number tomorrow and even higher than that number heading towards the end of the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're talking about temperatures that will be in the 60s pretty much straight across the board. But it is going to be another dry stretch of weather. So I think any relief that we've been getting from the drought situation kind of takes a little bit of a pause. Here's a look at today's max wind gusts. They calmed down for a little while yesterday evening, then they perked back up overnight into daybreak today. Windsor-Loch saw a peak gust of 37 miles per hour, low 30s for the New Haven area. And here's a look at that scattered rain or snow shower that we had again first thing in the morning, although most of us didn't see it. And now we are quiet, and not just quiet here in the Northeast, but across a good chunk of the country, which is good. You know, we're always saying that the weather can really kind of help or hamper voter turnout. So hopefully everybody's getting out there. Temperatures tonight dropping back into the upper 20s to right around 30 degrees inland, low to mid 30s for the Connecticut shoreline. So it's a chilly start to the day tomorrow, but a much milder finish with high temperatures climbing into the upper 50s to right around 60 degrees and full sunshine. We're going to continue with the sunshine, but continue to add a few degrees to that high temperature on Thursday with highs in the low to mid 60s. And again, I did want to show you, while that warming trend continues, this is taking out the rainfall forecast 6 days from now. It's not broken. It's turned on. There's just nothing to show you. The weather is going to be that quiet over the next 6 days. Here's your 7-day forecast. Upper 60s Friday into this upcoming weekend. Might even be able to flirt with the 70-degree mark there. The next chance for some showers is going to be maybe Tuesday around this time next week. Your shoreline 7-day, mid 60s Thursday, Friday, upper 60s possible heading into this weekend. Amanda?
Rachel, thanks. On this election day, there's a growing trend of companies giving their employees time off to vote. It's a national movement that's also being seen right here in Connecticut. Across the nation, voters head to the polls this election day, but there are some voters who won't have to go before or after work. Companies big and small are hopping on a national trend to give employees time off to vote. Starbucks said it will give its employees flexibility to vote. Walmart is giving its workers up to 3 hours paid time off to vote. Apple is giving its employees 4 hours off. And companies like Coca-Cola, Twitter, and Uber are giving employees the entire day off.
We saw there a heightened interest certainly in the election this year, and I think everybody feels the stakes are high. Whatever your political opinions are, I think people are passionate about being a part of this election. And so we just wanted to make sure they knew that we wanted to make sure they had the time to do that.
It's one reason why CEO Jill Adams says Avon-based integrated marketing company Adams & Knight is giving its employees Election Day off.
First and foremost, we just wanted to give people time to vote. But also, I think that right now, employees are just feeling so buffeted by things that are outside of their control. The pandemic, the environment, the economy, their disruption in their children's schools. And so we really wanted to broaden this and say, take time to seize this day to do something that is for you or your family that makes you feel like you're in control.
She says many employees are using the time to volunteer at the polls or to text bank or phone bank to get out the vote. Regardless of how they decide to spend their day, it's a way for Adams & Knight to show its appreciation for the dedication its employees have shown in really what has been a difficult time for everyone.
This is a time for all of us to really pull together, and this is not going to end anytime soon, this pandemic. And I think just making sure that we continue to support each other in whatever ways we can as employers, as employees, and just making sure that we all continue to recognize that we're all in this together.
And again, there is that national push to give employees time off to do their civic duty. We posted more information on our website, fox61.com.
Amanda, thank you. We have some breaking news now. Ansonia schools will be closed tomorrow due to an issue with the gas supply to the Hilltop section of the city. Ansonia Public Schools says it was notified this afternoon the gas supply to Ansonia and Derby's Hilltop area had been turned off by Eversource, and 3 Ansonia schools will not have hot water systems. School officials say they will notify the public when the issue is resolved. All right, still to come on the news at 5, athletes getting out to vote on this election day, why it's important to a couple of members of the UConn women's basketball team. Sean Pagano has that story straight ahead in sports. And as we head to the break, viewers sending in their I voted photos. Make sure you comment on the Fox 61 Facebook page for a chance to see your pictures on air. You can also upload your photos on the Fox 61 News app. Just click Share Here.
As our Election Day coverage continues, you may have seen sports leagues and athletes urging folks to get out and vote.
And as Fox 61 sports anchor Sean Pagano tells us, members of the UConn women's basketball team are doing as they always do, leading by example on this important day in our country.
Well, in the days and weeks and months leading up to the election, sports teams and leagues and athletes all over rallying around a common theme, and that is urging people to get out and vote. And that includes some members of the UConn women's basketball team. Kristen Williams and Paige Beckers voting in their first presidential election. Now, when it comes to elections, everyone has something that is important to them. And these two young Huskies are no different.
It's very important to me because my grandmother went doorstep to doorstep to try to get people to vote back in the day. So I feel like it's my duty to vote. And so that's very important to me. So yes, this is my first time voting.
I just turned 18 last year, so it's my first year I could vote. It was really big for me to use my platform and use the social media image that I have to try to get people to vote, and I can't ask other people to do it if I don't do it myself. So getting out there and voting was really big for me, and just we can talk about change all we want, but until we take steps toward action, it's not going to mean anything.
Both Beckers and Williams said they voted by absentee ballots, making sure that their voices are heard. Now, the Huskies have the day off, and many will spend the night together, having dinner at Coach Auriemma's house, staying in tune with the election.
There's a lot out there that generally isn't attached to elections, but this one has them all. And they've all invested a piece of themselves into this. And I want them to experience that feeling, what it feels like when you give yourself to something.
No doubt an important day for everyone. I'm Sean Pagano, Fox 61 Sports.
All right, Sean, thank you. And that's our time for now. Stay with us all evening long. You can expect more election night coverage. We're staying on the air for a special edition of the Fox 61 News at 6. Join us at 8 p.m. on the Fox 61 app, the Facebook page, and YouTube channel for live local coverage. And then right back here on TV for the Fox 61 News at 10 and 11. We'll see you then.